What's going on, friends? The tires on your Harley-Davidson are one of the most critical components on your motorcycle. Now, naturally, we usually don't put a whole lot of thought into them. We change them when they're worn, we check the air pressure before we go ride, but generally, that's about it. But when it comes to tires, there's a lot more than just putting the size on there that's required and airing it up to the proper pressure. There's a lot more involved when it goes into selecting tires than you may be aware of. Your Harley-Davidson, contrary to popular belief, Harley-Davidson didn't just throw the cheapest tires that they could find on out there and send it on out of the factory. The tires that were actually selected for your bike were actually made to handle the weight and speed rating requirements of your motorcycle and also to match the handling characteristics that your motorcycle was designed for. Now granted, Harley-Davidson probably went out and got the cheapest vendor that could meet those specifications, but naturally an OEM tire is actually a pretty dang good tire. Now, most of us, when we replace our tires, we don't go back with the original equipment manufacturer tire. We usually go out and buy something different from the aftermarket, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what you got to make sure you're doing is you're not just looking at, okay, this is the size I need for my bike, I'll go ahead and put these on there. There's a few other little things that you're going to really want to pay attention to. Guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. It is very important to match your tires to the style of riding that you do. If you're touring on an electric glide, you don't really want to actually go out and put a little more sporty set of tires on it. You want to get a nice hard compound touring tire. Now, for whatever reason, if you go canyon carving on your electric glide, yeah, maybe a softer compound sport tire may be more to your liking. But what you got to remember is if you're getting a softer compound, a little sportier tire on there, it may not necessarily be rated for what a tire that's designed for the electric glide would be made to carry. If you're not purchasing an OEM tire and you're going for an aftermarket tire, you definitely want to make sure that that aftermarket tire is going to meet or exceed the specifications of the OEM tire, definitely in speed and load ratings. Now, when inflating your tires, you never want to go to that max load indicated on the side of the tire. That is only for if you have your motorcycle loaded down to its absolute limit, and that load dictates being actually inflated to that max pressure. And we'll look at that a little bit more here a little later in the video, because that is definitely something that could get you into trouble if you're going with a tire other than the OEM. Now, it's very important to pay attention to the load index if you're buying an aftermarket tire. Now, for example, your OEM tire may have had a C low rating, which means the max PSI on that would have been 50. And you may have went out and got an aftermarket replacement that's got a B load rating on it, and its max pressure is only 42. So if you load your bike down and it actually dictates having to have that high max pressure in your tire, and you've got a B rated tire on there, and you went ahead and filled it to that C pressure, you're already grossly overinflated, and that's a very dangerous situation. Now, of course, you may have referred to your owner's manual to see, hey, what do I set my tire pressure at if I'm totally loaded down? Well, the bike originally called for a C-loaded tire, but you put a B on there, so the owner's manual is really not going to be any help. Now, in most cases, on your bike, there'll be a little tag that has what the manufacturer recommends to what you need to inflate your tires to. Now, generally, with most aftermarket tires, this isn't going to be an issue. You'll be able to actually inflate the aftermarket tire to what the factory actually calls for. But if you have any questions, it's always best to contact the tire manufacturer and ask them directly. Let them know what tire you have, what size, and what bike it's on. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to recommend to inflate it to what Harley-Davidson recommends. Now, tire pressure is absolutely critically important on your motorcycle's tires. Now, as you all know, motorcycle tires have a very little contact patch with the road. And the more air you put in them, if you overinflate, you're actually reducing that contact patch with the road. Proper tire pressure is absolutely critical for safety, number one, but it also affects your fuel mileage, your braking, your forward acceleration, your handling, and your steering. It's critical to keep your tires at the recommended pressure because there is a certain amount of deflection that's figured into that pressure for those sidewalls. To get the optimum deflection, you have to make sure that that tire pressure is set at what the manufacturer recommends. Too much air pressure is going to cause the sidewalls to be too stiff. Number one, it's going to make a horrible ride. The bike's not going to handle very well. And not only that, if you hit a pothole or, God forbid, an object in the road, this can cause you to lose control or actually cause damage to the motorcycle. Now, most importantly, overinflation reduces that contact patch on the road. And this is only exacerbated that if you're riding in wet weather. You're not going to have that contact on the road you would want with some wet pavement. Being underinflated is actually worse than being overinflated. Once again, this will cause poor fuel economy, bad handling, exacerbated tire wear, cupping, and not to mention absolutely horrible traction when it's wet outside. And guys, just think about this. A tire underinflated by 4 pounds, that tire has lost 80 pounds of its carrying capacity. That's quite a bit for just a 4-pound difference. So it is absolutely critical to make sure that your tires are aired to the proper pressure depending on the load that you're carrying. If you're carrying a passenger and you're loaded down with gear for a cross-country trip, you may at that point need to actually inflate the tires to that max pressure listed on the sidewall. Now, tire pressure is not affected by the weather. Tire pressure is affected by the temperature. And for every 10-degree drop or rise in temperature, this will change your tire pressure by 1 psi. Dropping 1 psi with the temperature every 10 degrees or going up 1 psi with the temperature every 10 degrees. Now, if you maintain your tire pressure all summer long, you went from 100-degree weather down to about 60-degree weather, you can almost bet that when you go out for that fall morning ride, your tire is going to be down at least 4 pounds at a bare minimum. So no matter what tires you decide to put on your Harley-Davidson, whether they're expensive tires or they're the more inexpensive Shinkos, tire pressure is still going to be king. Now, you're likely more than aware of not running your tires down past those wear bars. Those wear bars are about the absolute lowest you want to run your tires. And honestly, I don't like to run my tires down to the wear bars, especially on a front tire, because that's when you start getting that bar shake and bad handling. But even down on the wear bars, they're decent, not great in dry weather. But running a tire down on the wear bars in the rain, this can be extremely dangerous because by the time you hit the wear bars, you really don't have a lot of channels left in those tires. There's not a whole lot of tread there to really wick that water away from the center of the tire. So actually riding in wet weather with tires down on the wear bars, this can be extremely dangerous. Now, a tire can actually look brand new, but it can actually have some hidden dangers. Tires actually do have a shelf life, believe it or not. Tires do wear just sitting on the shelf. And I'm not talking about just the tread wear, because they're not going to wear sitting on the shelf. But tires do age, and as they age, they actually become dangerous. Tires actually experience heat cycles. They go from ambient air temperature to operating temperature, and then back down to ambient air temperature when they cool down. Every time a tire goes through a heat cycle, it actually slowly hardens the rubber in the tire. And tires that actually sit on the shelf for a long period of time, basically a chemical reaction takes place, and it also hardens the tire over time. So it really does seem like everything in the world is working against our tires. Tires are literally living on borrowed time, whether you use them or not. Now, whether it's through heat cycles or just age, over time, that rubber becomes less spongy. And as that rubber becomes less spongy, that rubber loses its ability to interlock with the protrusions and the pores within the asphalt, which actually helps us stay upright, especially when you're cornering, running down the road, or even trying to stop or accelerate. And here's another fun thing about tires. Tires could actually absorb oil and petroleum chemicals off the road itself as we're riding down. And over time, as these tires absorb these different oils, different antifreeze, chemicals, petroleum-based products, this dries out the rubber as well. So guys, not riding your motorcycle, not using your tires, trying to save tread, you're really not doing yourself any favors. Either way, they're going to wear out, they're going to get old, they're going to become dangerous, and you're going to have to change them. So rather than just let your bike sit in the garage and let them deteriorate from age, I don't know about you, but I'd rather be out on the street wearing out my tires on the good old asphalt. Guys, I want your opinions on tires. Do you like to go with the more expensive tire, or do you like to get maybe the Shinko tire, a little less expensive tire? Yeah, you got to change it a little more often, but you can still get some decent mileage out of them. What's your preference, high dollar tires or go with something a little less expensive? But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. Please don't forget, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. But until next week, guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.